First of all, I love that he called you out on like the classic Savage response because you do that. Like you mean it. You're like, that's awesome.
I do mean it.
No, I know you mean it, but you're like, that's cool. That's awesome. That's sick. And I'm like, I know you mean it, but why are you giving me like shark eyes?
This is called talking very intensely. And I've been told sometimes that my intense stare can be intimidating when I mean it to be genuine. Hello and welcome to Talking Too Loud with Chris Savage. I'm your host, Chris Savage. I'm joined by Sylvie Lubauer, producer extraordinaire. Sylvie, we got another great one today.
Got another great one. They're pretty much always great these days.
They're always perfect. It's a perfect show. It's a perfect recording every time.
Every time we're checking all the boxes. Nothing goes wrong on our show.
So not true. Well, we have a great guest today, Patrick Campbell, who's the co-founder and CEO of ProfitWell. And he is now the chief strategy officer at Paddle because he just sold his company, ProfitWell, to Paddle for over $200 million.
So wild. We're going to get into all that.
We're going to get into all of that, yes, as we get into the interview. But first, it's basically, is it summer? No, it's not technically. It's late spring right now.
Late spring. What's the first day of summer, technically?
I'm going to go after the summer equinox, so June 21st.
All right.
Is that the first day of summer, everyone?
I think so.
That's right. I checked it. In the northern hemisphere, let's be clear. The southern hemisphere is completely different, but in the northern hemisphere, summer starts June 21st. You heard it here first.
You are clearly talking too loud about the equinox and being right about the equinox. Those two. I'm talking too loud about a lifeguard shortage. Have you read about this?
You know, I just heard that there was a lifeguard shortage in New York City.
Across the country.
I didn't know it was a national issue.
It's a national.
It was a regional issue.
It's a national issue. I was reading about Arizona, how temps are getting hotter, so people want to go to public pools. They can't because there are no lifeguards.
That is an issue. That is a very big issue.
Listeners, if you have some free time.
If you happen to be 15 years old and you're trying to figure out what to do this summer, go do some quick lifeguard training, demand double the normal rate, and you can be out there protecting the public at the pools.
Listen, there's no age limit on lifeguarding, okay? That's all I have to say.
Are you sure?
Now I don't know. Maybe you can't be a senior citizen and a lifeguard, but who knows? Who knows?
Who knows? Well, Patrick Campbell probably knows. I mean, he's a data guy. He probably has an idea.
We'll ask him.
He can probably Google things as well as we can.
Yeah.
It's chaos today. But you know what? This is another perfect episode. Nothing ever goes wrong.
That's right. Bring it back.
This will be unedited. So it does seem like the time to get into this interview with Patrick.
Seems like the time.
Okay, here we go. All right. Patrick, congratulations and welcome on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Good to see you. I do like how we just reverted to our public personas instead of
how you do it.
Phone call that we would normally have.
It's like, exactly hey, man,
right. What's going on? That's how we normally would do it. So I'm gonna redo that and go, hey, what's up, man? I'm gonna do classic.
No, that was perfect. Just keep it real. Keep it as real as possible.
We like the high energy.
So I'm very excited to have you on Talking Too Loud, and I know you have some things that you're talking too loud about. So I have to ask the question, what has got you talking too loud these days?
Can you truly talk too loud? That's a real question that we should all really ask ourselves.
According to my wife,
Savage
yes.
can. Savage can.
Well, she's not a media personality like you. I will say, I'm talking too loud. We just merged, however you want to put it, ProfitWell. So we were I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna be nice and confident. We were one of, if not the first, B2B brand to run a media strategy. We obviously had a good product too. I don't think we were just gotten bought for the media strategy, but we have now exited the company, and it's not a, hey, we're going to go and see you later. It's we're merging. I already got a neon paddle symbol behind me in my
Good
studio and
job.
everything here. And
So fresh.
I learned from the best, right? Yeah. And so it's one of those things. Yeah. We just sold for over $200 million. That's the fun banner number. We're going to be cranking moving forward on, kind of now a unicorn. I'm on the board, the chief strategy officer, and going to be kind of moving forward with like trying to do all I can to help the team kind of will this thing to IPO and kind of beyond here. So yeah,
Well,
that's what I'm talking too
congratulations,
loud
bud.
about.
I mean, I
Yeah,
remember,
thanks, man.
we've known each other for a long time in the very early stages.
Too
There was
long.
a lot of craziness
Yeah.
that you had to overcome.
A lot of turmoil. That's
For
true.
for people who don't know, can you tell us like what is ProfitWell, and also like how did it get started? How did you join?
Yeah, good question. So ProfitWell, we're in the business of what's called revenue automation for subscription businesses, and that's a industry phrase for you plug your subscription business. Doesn't matter if you're a B2B SaaS company or a consumer subscription or whatever it is. You plug your billing system into ProfitWell. You get a bunch of free financial reporting. We have about 30,000 different subscription companies using that free metrics reporting. And then the way we make money, because that product's free, is we study all of that data. And then we have a couple of different products that automatically reduce your churn and then optimize your pricing. And so that's kind of the revenue automation piece. And it's this kind of new wave of software of, we're calling it do it for you. It's very similar to what Paddle does for billing, but instead of you having to become an expert in credit cards or how to get someone back whose credit card has failed or how to get someone who's churned back, we are the experts in that because we have all the data. And then we do it for you, as in like you don't have to set up the product, you just plug it in and it does its job. And so brands that use us, everyone from Canva to Autodesk and Lyft and Blue Bottle Coffee, all kinds of subscription companies under the sun. In terms of how we started, my background's in econometrics and math. It's code for having a lot of friends as a child. It also makes me fun. It's funny. I've said that joke so many times. I need to like be honest with people. It's my favorite joke that I've come up with, and I think
it still hits.
I do need to retire at some point. I know. That's why I was like, I'm gonna reveal that I've
Use the old standby.
Yeah.
Do it. You got to do what you got to do. Like, dog and pony shows, work for a reason. But I started my career. I worked in U.S. intelligence. I worked at NSA. Kind of fun. It sounds so much sexier than it actually was. It was a really fulfilling job. Some of the best training I've ever had. And then I worked at Google, and then I jumped into the startup scene. And really specifically how this got started is I was working at a company on pricing and kind of was thinking about how pricing was like this thing that everyone knows is important. It has really high impact, but like all of these smart people that can take on any problem in a business, as soon as you give them pricing, they all get kind of like emotional and I don't know. And then like no one ever does anything. Right. And so I thought that was really interesting. And I got linked up with a couple of, I would say like founding advisors is probably the best way to kind of put them in the Boston scene. And I'd never done this before and kind of jumped in, and the rest is somewhat history. So yeah, that's kind of the starting point, if that makes sense.
There's a lot of interesting things I think there's a lot of lessons. Like one, you saw this opportunity in pricing and you went after it, and you all did consulting for a long time. We worked with you and you helped us like figure out our pricing a couple of times, which is huge. And you're exactly right. It is emotional. And before that, it was a debate. And often you just copy other people too. You're just like, see some other pricing model, like they must have it figured out. So like, I'll just do what they're doing. And then of course they don't have it figured out because they're making decisions the same way. And it is such a lever. It's such a crazy important lever. And then you got to the business model and the product with ProfitWell, which I remember thinking at the time, like this is pretty wild because you had a bunch of competition and you made the core product totally free.
Yeah. So what's funny is like the reason, so to back up a second, like the funny thing about pricing is the impact that you just said. And so many people, no one does the research. No one does. Even now, like we've helped, 1,000 companies with their pricing at this point. And like, it's still only a dent in the greater industry. And whenever you're doing competitive based pricing, the problem is like, one, you always over index like how competitive your market actually is. And like, two, you're literally copying like the dumb kid in class. Like you're copying off the dumb kid in class because they didn't do their homework either, you know? And so it's one of those things that I'm glad you kind of brought up, because I think it is such an important lever. And we were trying to, not only with our content, but also with that product, like just make it easier, just make it a little bit easier, right? It's still hard, but like make it a little bit easier. And I think that what I really appreciate in hindsight, and it's definitely post hoc rationalization, is that I don't think we would have been successful, definitely from a financial standpoint, but also from like a knowledge standpoint, if we hadn't started with that pricing product, because we had this like idea of, we wanted to get to kind of a pure software product, and Price Intelligently has some software with it, but it's not like the way that you interface with our customers, more of a service basis. So we wanted to get a better way to get the data that we needed. And so we kind of came up with this idea, and I haven't really talked about this in a long time, but we had this idea of like, what if you were the New Relic of revenue, like application monitoring? Like, what if you're monitoring revenue and then able to point out like where people suck at certain things in their business? Well, you can't do it for all types of businesses because the search space is too wide. But if it was just subscription businesses, like every subscription business, like we could probably create like a unified theory of subscription growth, right? Like, because every single one, no matter the subvertical, is very similar in how they think about things, like in terms of lifetime value and CAC and these types of things. So this is where this metrics product came from. And we were helping a company who was about to IPO with their pricing, and they were calculating MRR and churn incorrectly. And so we were like, we're going to be rich. We're going to be billionaires. Like, we're going to get Ferraris. I don't think anyone of us actually wants a Ferrari, but like, it was one of those things where we were like, oh, this is the idea. And then, as you kind of alluded to, we like had like 10 people on the product. It was terrible. I designed it, which is like, that's code for it's terrible just in general. Yeah, it never should happen. We did have a really cool piggy bank logo. It was one of those things where what was interesting is like, we were about to kind of like, all right, let's launch. Like, what the hell does launch mean, right? And all of a sudden, like, this company called Baremetrics came out. This company called Chart Mogul was out. And like within like a 6-month period, there were like 30 different products. And to kind of make a long story short of why I think we started with pricing, it was actually a really smart thing, is that we were preaching so much about like stop, don't guess and check, don't keep guessing and check, stop, take 3-4 weeks and do some research and then go, because you'll go faster. And that's what we did, is we stopped. We went, okay, let's take a step back. Let's do some market research. And what we discovered is that analytics products are notoriously terrible to sell and build. It's just because people don't appreciate the time that goes into them. And then on top of that, we discovered like, oh, like no one wants to pay like that much for this product. And in a market that only has 150,000 addressable customers, like this is a terrible business. And so we were either going to go up market, which is what all analytics companies do, or we were going to go, you know, screw it, let's give up, or let's give it away for free and, you know, build this thesis that I kind of explained at the beginning. So yeah, that was kind of the lay of the land there. I hope that's interesting. I think it's just kind of the way we got there.
Yeah, I think that the key thing you said at the end there that I think, well, there's a bunch of things, but the experience you had with customers and actually understanding them, like qualitatively, like working with them and realizing that most people didn't do this research. They were just, you know, I love that analogy of copying off the dumb kid, right? Like that's like basically what was happening. And then doing your own research on the pricing for this opportunity and realizing no one values this, the size, like they don't know, at least the metrics part, they don't want to pay for it. And I remember having that conversation with you when you're like, yeah, we're going free on this thing. And I was like, it's pretty wild. We're like, yeah, well, we're going to get adoption and then we're going to figure out the things that we can build that are actually driving value. Is super, it seems obvious now, was not the obvious path, I think, if someone were just to jump into this space and make an analytics business. I also want to go into, I mean, you know, especially you started, you had these founding advisors, you had this small team, like you never raised money, bootstrapped it the whole way. And then this opportunity came up recently to actually, you know, join with Paddle, go after this bigger thing. Let's jump into that decision. Like, how did that decision come up? What made you actually take it seriously? Walk us through it.
Yeah, honestly, this is yours and Paul and Litmus's fault. Like, this is Wistia and Litmus's fault, all of this. So I'm going to blame you when this doesn't work out well. No, I'm just kidding. So Yeah. I'm just remembering to fill in some context because so for folks who don't know, like Savage and I have been friends for about a decade now, and there's a little cohort of folks in the Boston ecosystem that we hang out with, the Help Scout crew, Litmus, us, the Wild Bit crew out of Philly. And what's really kind of funny is like early on, I think we were going to dinner. I think you were there as well, like just kind of the founders and just like hanging out. And I remember turning to Paul. This was one of the first times like I had met him. And I was like, so why didn't you raise money? And he just went, I didn't know it was a thing. Like, I just didn't know that that was a thing that people did, like when they started that company. And I was at a venture-backed startup before ProfitWell. And then that was just the inundation, like even back in like 2012, 2013, that's just like, that's what you do. Like you raise money, right? And then you guys were like, no, there's this other route, that's bootstrapping, and bootstrapping, it's not a like better or worse thing. It's just a different thing. And I was like, oh, okay. And I think that heavily influenced things. But the issue was as we were getting to 2022, as like we're in 2021, we were like, there's no way we keep going the way we want to go in terms of like the values that we have about what we want to build. And meaning like, we don't want just a very profitable business and we take the profits out. We want like to build a big ass company, right? And so there's no way we can do that or fulfill those values unless we raise money at this point, because we were having so many $10,000 arguments, as I like to call them. Like we would have like, here are these 5 initiatives. They're all $10,000 or more. Like we're arguing about it because yeah, we could do all of them, but it doesn't always feel like you can do all of them, even though they're like you're cash flowing so much. And so we were like, oh, well, I don't know. Like we're having just dumb arguments is what that means. And so we were like, we knew now that
you were like too regimented or too strict in your prioritization.
Totally.
Basically.
Like, I know you guys know this. Like there was a point at Wistia where you guys were like, oh yeah, we could like probably spend money. Like, we could like go for it.
Oh yeah. It's happened multiple times, right? Like totally. It's happened where we're like, oh, spend more. And then the list of things you're trying to prioritize, you have 15 things and you're trying to get down to 3. And then the truth is you should do 10.
Yeah. Well, and that was the 2 things. It was, we know where we would invest the money. That was the first thing that we discovered. And then the harder thing was, oh my gosh, we now know what the expected ROI would be because of our sales team, because of our marketing, these types of things. And when you know those 2 things and you don't get more resources, that is a value decision, right? Like your values as a company, right? And it was against our values. Like we wanted, to grow big or go home kind of a thing. And so we started basically like, okay, let's prep the company to do that. Let's get some things in order. We had no idea what that actually meant, which is, a fun little lesson. But like, and then all of a sudden it was, okay, we're going to start going out. I'd known Christian, the CEO and the founder of Paddle, for a while. And, he kind of got in front of it when I was asking for advice. And he was just like, well, what if we like joined forces? Like, what if we bought you? And we were like, oh no, you can't buy our baby. It's our baby. Like we need our baby, and but then it was like, well, wait a minute.
Were you putting on like a baby Bjorn just then? I just want to be
that
clear
was my
for those.
baby Bjorn.
Yeah. If you were listening, Patrick just modeled putting a baby onto his chest. And
I was like, this is my child.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it was one of those things where we were just like, what are we doing? Like, this is a way, like, if as long as the values align, the vision aligns, which is, a big if, this is another way up the mountain. This is another way to get, more resources. That's kind of what kicked this thing into gear.
And then once you get, because it is a very emotional decision. Right. Also, I think to sell your company, at least for me, it was right. When we had the opportunity to sell, we decided not to. Brendan and I were like, we have much more stuff we want to do. We want to do it ourselves. Honestly, it felt like failure to me at that moment and I think it was like all the things we were trying to do. And obviously this doesn't feel like failure to you at all. That's evident. That's not even on the radar. Like this is like, oh, I'm doing more of the thing I wanted to do. Right. So, but like, was that hard emotionally? Yeah. How has that been?
Yeah. So to be frank, I think that we had other options. We had multiple options, I should say. I think those options, like I do feel like a failure. Like this sounds so crazy, but you'll understand. Maybe some of the other founders will understand. I do feel like a failure on some level because it's a very like, oh my God, I didn't create the $1 billion thing, the $5 billion vision. Oh, I had this $10 billion. And I know it's insane, but like, you kind of need that, I think, to be successful if you're trying to build a big thing. If you just want like great. I don't think lifestyle business is pejorative, but for some reason people make it a pejorative. But like, if you want like an amazing lifestyle, like our Wildbit friends for a long time, like, that's what they wanted. They didn't want to build $1 billion business, right? And so it was one of those things where they would make good money. And but I think for me, it was like, okay, we kind of failed. But I think that there were other choices that would have made it feel more like a failure, because this we have a very rare opportunity in the sense of our culture aligns really well. Like the way, and I have pretty strong opinions on culture. Like we're very aligned on the important aspects of those. The product vision is not just the same in terms of like features, functionality, but is the same in terms of ethos, like what we want to build, how we want to build those things. And then the media strategy, which is really important to us as well. They're like, yes, that is what we've wanted to do. We haven't been able to do it. Like, let's just do that. Let's do it. Right. And so those are like three things that are like, we wouldn't have gotten anywhere else. And I think that I would have had, like, I'm going to have post honeymoon feelings. Like, I know that that's going to happen more and more, but I think it is one of those things where like, there were other options where they were like, well, we don't really want that team. I basically would have a glorified director level role and everyone else would become like ICs kind of a thing. And so it was like, that would have made it worse. I will say, to kind of tie this off here, I'm very chatty Cathy today, which is good or bad for a podcast, depending on
it's good.
what you think. But
We like it.
I will say that like the moment we thought about like the monetary or the financial impact for the team, like individuals on the team, and we could have gotten that. I mean, you guys did it with your debt round and stuff like that. We could have figured that out somewhere else. But the moment we thought about that, and the moment we like got over, well, if it's more resources, Faku's running product, I'm like doing my thing, all this other stuff, and like we're just doing the same thing in a larger vessel. Like the moment those two things kind of came into play, there was no emotional like defensiveness. There was no like anything. Like even closer to the close, we started doing like, well, combined names, what do we do with the brands? And I was like, well, of course the combined brand is going to be Paddle. And they were like, why? I was like, well, if you just think of like a company that IPOs, like ProfitWell, like I love the name and stuff, but it's not like, it just doesn't fit the paradigm. Right. And also like, there's all this other stuff. Right. And so I think the Paddle crew was kind of surprised at how low ego a lot of these things were, because I think it just becomes very pragmatic, if that makes sense.
Well, it seems like to play back what I just heard, you're saying, once you knew that everyone was really taken care of on the team,
yeah,
and that you were actually going to just execute and do what you actually want to do faster, bigger, better, and you're not just an acqui-hire, like you are actually, your teams are continuing, and you and Faku have like are coming in and like really helping to drive a lot of this stuff, then actually, you hit this threshold. It's just like logical, rational, and I do love that framing. Which is very similar to the framing actually from the beginning of like, well, what will this be if this is a big company? Like, what do we need to do? You're right. And like frame your decision that way is like, well, of course it's going to be Paddle. But it's interesting to hear, because I think so many people get attached to their brands. I think us also bootstrappers, like I'm obviously extremely attached to Wistia. I'm wearing yet another Wistia shirt again today. And like, your personality, your identity gets tied up in that. And so it can be really hard to figure out how do you transition. And it's cool to see you actually doing that.
Yeah. Well, I think it like everyone was like everyone externally was like, wow, like you're, because my identity is not just from a spiritual perspective, like you're talking about, but actually like from an external perspective, my identity is like I'm in the shows, I'm doing all this stuff, like I'm going to the conferences, right? And it's like, it's one of those things where I don't know. I think that if I was like a one person band or a one person app or something like that, I might actually have more of that. But the way that we had built, and this is where some of the culture stuff was, like a long enough timeline, like your exec team, like the company should be able to live without you. The company should be able to, like, you should be able to get hit by a bus and you're fine, right? And your exec team, I am a big fan of exec teams where like everyone could be a CEO, right? And I think that's what we're walking into. There's a bunch of founders on the exec team at Paddle, which makes it like really interesting because you kind of cut through the BS, but also like they kind of get it. Like people aren't afraid to like roll up their sleeves and like get into stuff. And so that was like a big crossover. And as soon as those things started happening, I was like, oh, okay. Like yeah, let's go. This makes sense. Like the logic just kind of digs in, and there's probably a couple flare ups here and there in terms of like emotions and stuff like that. But like, I haven't had that like crisis of like, oh my gosh, this was a terrible mistake, or anything close to that, if that makes sense.
That's
It's been
awesome.
2 months though, so we'll see.
Yeah. So it closed 2 months ago, the deal. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
A month. And then you announced now, so a month later. And how did you tell the team? Like, how did you bring the team along on this journey?
So of course we recorded everything because that's what you do as a modern day brand. So we have a documentary. I don't know if you saw that even. We have a full documentary that we cut.
I have not.
Yeah, it's 25 minutes. The whole team just saw the final cut actually today. So we did record the announcement, and what we did, which I think is a good like test that you should do. So I'm obviously running a lot of point on these conversations with these different suitors and these types of things. And, we did look to raise money. So we kind of played hard mode. We went from never doing this before to kind of playing hard mode of like both trying to sell a company and try to like raise money. And so what ended up happening is it kind of came to a decision point. So we kind of set a deadline and we're like, listen, like, we got number of pieces of paper and all that kind of stuff. We brought in our like top 10 people, like our core 10 people is probably a better way to put that.
And how many people are on the team when this is happening? Just so
we have about 90, 95
Okay.
total.
Okay.
And so we had 10 folks from, the guy who was a marketing intern 8.5 years ago and is now a director of engineering, like just that life cycle, which is insane. All the way to like, the person who runs our finance and ops and is kind of aware of what was going on, those types of things. And so we brought them into a room all in Boston. And some of them didn't know all the details. We gave them all of the details and we said, we're going to walk out, Faku, Peter, and I. You guys argue, figure out like what you want to do. And then when we come back, like we'll answer any questions, but when we come back, we will argue the other side of any option that you give. Right. And so we went away, came back, all that kind of fun stuff. And, we spent probably like 10 hours, like talking through everything. And then that was like the day before we signed the term sheet. So we signed the term sheet that Monday, and then you get into diligence. Then you get into like the final contract negotiation. So we did a split close, which is basically you sign, and then there's some things you have to do before you close within like 2 weeks. So we signed, and then like on a Friday, and then that Monday we had everyone come into the office. And yeah, we just said, listen, like, like we sold the company. Here's why. Kind of went through everything, and then there were, I had basically 85 different one-on-ones for like, here's your new offer, here's your proceeds from the sale, all that kind of fun stuff. And so, yeah, again, like a great day in hindsight, but at the time it's like, all right, Excel spreadsheet, have to check this off, which is not the way that you think about these things going down.
And what side did the employees argue?
So those 10 folks, they did a straw poll. It was pretty split at first in terms of two options. Like they basically said, these are the two options. It was tight, but they did come on the side of paddle. So we came in, and then we kind of argued about the two options for a while, and we argued both sides a bunch. And then it was a lot of like information gaps. Like, and a lot of times they're just trusting us. Like when we say like, well, what about this? And we're like, well, you got to understand, if we go to this company, I know everyone thinks it's a darling, but we met them, we talked to them, and like, I don't know, like it didn't, like, do you want to be like an individual contributor there that's not running anything, or maybe in 2 years is, the 100th, director of engineering or something like that? Or like, do you want to go here and like run stuff, right? And kind of learn and keep that cycle going. Like there was a lot of that, right? And then they trusted us, and we came down on this was the right decision. And yeah, it was a really fascinating like conversation, and surreal experience, I think is the best way to describe it.
I mean, it sounds surreal. I love that you told the story of the Excel spreadsheet, like, because like when we've done big things like this, and we've had to do more of them recently, like you basically like, all right, we got to tell everyone this stuff. And like, it's a really exciting day, but actually it's not, because like right now it's meetings, it's check boxes. What I imagine is like the, the rousing speech, and everyone walks out, And they're like, yes, here we go. And the truth is there might be arousing speech, but then it's just like a bunch of hard work and like direct conversations and like making sure people are getting the right emails.
I haven't had a vacation in a number of years, which I'm not saying is a good thing. I was supposed to take the month of January off. And then this stuff all started in November. And I was like, all right, well, that's not happening. And so I think for us, it was interesting because we did that. So people signed new paperwork. There's a bunch of like paperwork and stuff, let's say the rest of, April, right? Then we brought everyone to London, like just outside London to like, so everyone's together, like the 350 people, us are 90 or so. And then the rest on the paddle side. So we do a summit, which is like a retreat. We do a whole like dog and pony show. And then like afterwards, it's like, oh, we have a board meeting. We just had a board meeting on Friday. And so there was a bunch of things to like change and prep because now we're this combined company. And so it's kind of crazy because what we did in the market we're in. So we raised a couple $100 million. The acquisition went through, and we did all of that in like, basically we started it basically a week before the market decided to like really start, going crazy.
Yeah.
And at the board meeting, like we were like, yeah, we shouldn't lose sight of that, but also time doesn't stop, like you got to keep going. And I'm saying all that to say, like, I don't know, I haven't really felt it yet, I don't think, because there's just so much to do. And like, me enough to know that like, I don't know if I'm going to feel it, which is kind of screwed up. Like I kind of like worry about myself a little bit there, because one thing that was really fascinating is like a couple of weeks ago, even like Peter and I were talking and he like quipped, he's like, yeah, a lot of money in the bank, still writing emails. Like, you know what I mean? And it made me kind of think about it in the way of like, oh, like I'm not different. And that is both scary and like awesome, like with an exit, like, a lot of money in the bank, but I'm like the same person, which, is something to reflect on. And I haven't quite done all the reflection on it.
Well, I think it's really well put in terms of a lot of people believe that that's the thing that's going to change their life. Right. And then it doesn't. Yeah. It makes sense that you are the same person to me. I'm also just so excited for you. I mean, I'm so excited that you like did this the way you want to do it. And I'm so excited for you that you timed the market perfectly. Like most people did not. I have such
good skill, I'm so
yeah, you just understand valuations. You understand hyperinflation.
Like, beautiful minded, that market data. Like, no, there's no way. Like
you had all the data. You had all the SaaS data and you understood what was going to happen. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just kind of funny. Yeah. I will say on the founder point, without obviously violating trust of anyone, but I texted 30 people. I think it was right around 30 people. It was basically like, I can't tell you all the details, but let's say like multi 9-figure exit. And most of these people had a significant exit, if not all of them had a significant exit or had like built a really nice business. And I was basically like, okay, like, do you regret the decision? Because they'd all had these exits, and half of them said yes. Now that half obviously has the money in the bank. It's
easy to say.
It's hard to like truly know, but it was one of those things where both halves, or one half was like, yeah, no, like I do regret it. Obviously they have money in the bank. And so it's one of those things you got to take it a little bit in context. The other half was like, I don't regret it at all. Right. And then out of those 30, 3 had become basically like either alcoholics or drug addicts for at least a short period of time. They're all in a good place now. And it was one of those things I realized in those conversations that like the purpose and being comfortable with like decisions is such a bigger thing than we like to talk about. Like regret minimization, I think, is such a big thing. And I know you and I have had these conversations, right? Mm-hmm. Where it's like, amongst our friend group, someone will be like, well, yeah, I know, Savage, like you want to keep going, but like, I don't know, it's a risk, man. You should take some money off the table. Like you should take the risk. That's why you should raise money and blah, 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 right? It's one of those things, and this was much earlier than it is today in your life cycle, but it's one of those things where like, you have to have a strong sense of what you want to do and do you regret it? Like for me, I was going through this transaction. If everything I thought about Paddle turned out to be wrong, I need to be comfortable that like, I don't get the stock, or like I'll get the stock, but I'm not going to be happy, or I'm going to leave or something like that. And I need to be okay with that. And that's a big bar when you really think about it. Other people, it's like, I don't want to work for anyone else. I don't want to work anywhere else. And so if my baby gets destroyed, that's fine, as long as I have like this amount or this whatever, right? And I think that that's a thing you really have to think about before, I would argue, raising money, and I would argue before like selling a company or something like that as well.
Yeah, that's great advice. It's like, how do you want to spend your time, right? Like that's the one thing that you should be thinking about, like what brings you joy, and like what keeps you up at night, and like, what optimize for the thing that like puts you on the path of, I think, least regrets is the right call there. But it's really hard to kind of manage that, because as you said, like of the 30 that you asked, it's like half of them regret it and half of them don't. It's like 50-50. It's pretty wild. You would think that selling a company, it would be something like 90% of people would be happy that they did it.
Well, I think it's because we know as founders, we can rationalize anything, but we know in our souls, like whether we like agree with that or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we'll externally be like, yeah, man, it was the right decision. Everything's great. And internally we're like, this is terrible. Like this was a terrible decision. It's fine. I'm going to be fine. But like, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, like the introspection point, like you have to have those cycles. And I think those friends around you, because one thing I didn't realize, and I realize it now, like I love my job. I am all in on whatever I'm doing. I'm not starting 6 things. I am singular focused. I haven't worn any ProfitWell swag like in a month. Like I'm all paddle swag because I'm just like all in. And I knew that about myself, but that was the thing I thought would change a little bit. Like, oh, like I have this, like, let's just say freedom, now that I have a good amount of cash. And it was like, no, it didn't change. I'm at work. I'm writing emails. I was here till 10 p.m. last night. I was, cranking, just doing all these things. That's just who I am. And it's a little bit freeing because it's like, oh, that's who I am. And that's okay. Like, as long as I'm not like, demanding that out of anyone else. And I'm just, demanding that out of myself. I think that's the introspection that I'm so thankful I did that work like years before in order to like, not fall apart, in the first month at least post close essentially.
What advice would you have based on where you are now? And what you've been through and going through the acquisition and all of this, like what advice would you have for people who are just starting today? Like how should they think about their journey to make sure that they're on a path of like, maximum regret minimization?
Yeah. So it's a great question. I think the thing that you have to do is, or you have to realize is that some of the things you're going to learn is going to be like wisdom. It can't be taught. But what I would do differently is I would put some milestones in my business right now. I would first, if I'm going to start today, I would say, what do I want? I want a business that just does cash flow. I'm not going to raise money. I don't need it to be big. I want to get to $100,000 a year so that I can be happy and like, work 20 hours a day or week, or something like that. Right. Or I want to be the next Mark Zuckerberg. I want to create something really, really big. Have that conversation with yourself. And then I would put milestones every 6 months for the first 3 years, just to revisit that conversation. Because I think that guides you in a lot of your decision making. And you can add stuff like, what are the values as a company? Like I want, values being like, I want, as little time as possible being spent on the business for growth. And maybe I'm going to spend a ton of time the first year to kind of get it moving. And then afterwards, because that'll affect, do I hire a bunch of people? If I don't want to spend as much time, I'm not going to have a sales team, because the sales team takes a lot of time typically, right? Like there's all these things that'll be there. That's a big thing. Like, what do I want? And keep coming back to that. And it's okay to change, but it's okay to refine that. I think 2, doing probably similar introspection on yourself, like not just what you want out of the business, but what you want to learn, I think is really, really powerful. I would not start a business with funding. I think that in hindsight, we should have raised money earlier than this exit. But I would start always like the first 6 to 12 months side project while I'm at work already, or like, give myself enough runway to like get there through savings and stuff like that. Because I think that crucible of bootstrapping or side project you only can work on at nights and weekends, it forces you to be really good about what am I doing? Who is it for? What does that look like, et cetera. And you don't want to use funding to learn. I don't think you should do that unless you're building nuclear fusion or something like that. You should use funding to accelerate, not to like learn, because I think those are really costly mistakes. And the third thing is just go easy on yourself. Like you're going to make so many mistakes, like, and that's okay. Like, it's never linear. It's always like, in hindsight, it's always linear. Like we did this, we did this, we did this. But even like ProfitWell being free, like we struggled with it. We went back and forth. It was probably like one of those things that we didn't really like internalize why we did it and how we did it until like a year later, right? But I think go easy on yourself because you're going to be hard enough on yourself. So yeah, I think those are the three things.
Love that. Wow, what an answer.
That was a classic Savage response. Like I know you meant it, but it was like, wow. What an answer. That was great.
I really do mean it. I do mean it.
I know you do. I'm just giving you.
Yeah, no, I know. As you were talking, I'm thinking about the hard decisions we've made over the years and like it always coming back to knowing what we want from the company, what things we're going to be okay with, what things we're not going to be okay with. But it didn't start like that, right?
It makes FOMO so much easier too.
Totally.
It's like, I know you have had, maybe I shouldn't say these publicly. I was going to reveal all my secrets. I'm revealing all your secrets. I feel you've had some offers. You said it. You've had some offers. And like,
yeah.
Let's say like, God forbid, industry tanks or something goes bad after those offers. Well, yeah, like there's going to be a little FOMO, a little regret, but it's also like, no. We made this decision because of this. We were considerate of that decision. And it was easy not to have that conversation, or it was easy to say no, or whatever it is, because it's not exactly what we want. And
and it's ultimately incredibly personal, right? Like it's what do you need to feel such that you feel like you've taken care of the people around you, or maybe that's not, I would hope that's most people's priorities, but for some people that's not going to be. What do you need to feel that you've taken care of yourself, your family? I mean, I think I've told you this before, but when we decided not to sell, my wife Alexandra and I we had a pretty serious conversation, and it was like, basically I had been telling her for years that like, I'm working like crazy. I'm never taking vacation because, once we sell the company, that's all going to change. And then when we decided not to take those offers, like not to do a real, acquisition, I was like, okay, I guess we need to start taking vacation. Like we have to start changing our lives a little bit to match like the fact that this is going to be going on much longer, because if I don't, like I'm going to burn out and it's going to be too much. And so I did start taking a lot more vacation, and ultimately I learned a lesson there of like, oh, when I'm on vacation, they feel bad emailing and calling. And so more people own stuff, and we actually scale because of that. And I wouldn't have done that if I hadn't realized just how important it was, to take vacation. But that came for me out of basically regret minimization of like, well, if I'm not going to sell and I would have had all this time, then I have to figure out how to incorporate having that time into the business, like day to day.
So I think that's totally true. I think I had a very similar conversation with Jenny when we first started dating, and the business was in like, not that the stage you described, but it was in like a very like, everything's crazy. It's early days. I fear I'm just not that person. And that's what's scary. Like I have to try it. Like I haven't tried it, but like, and that's where I'll probably text you later about like, I don't know. Like I totally get the whole, well, now it's a marathon. A marathon requires different effort than the sprint. And it totally makes sense and it's all logical, but I just feel like I'm not that guy, which means so many bad things for my life, I would say.
I'm not sure you're that guy either from knowing you. Like,
See, that's
I feel
scary,
like
right?
When you say that, I remember with one of those founder retreats, and everyone else is like partying, and like we've had all this, like these meetings and conversations throughout the day, and like we've had dinner and we're going to have drinks. And then we're like, where's Patrick? What's he doing? And you're over like doing a live like AMA on like Reddit, like 9 p.m. at night. And then you're like doing, I'm like, this guy's an animal. This guy doesn't stop. Yeah. And you're like, I'm sorry, it's just who I am. I'm not sure that guy either, but I do think it is to that point of like regret minimization when you're making decisions is just super important. I think you're spot on there. I really do mean, I think the advice you gave is legit. I think people should listen to it. I think they should internalize it. And I also just appreciate you being so transparent and coming on and talking about this. I mean, there's a lot to learn from your story, and you're such a great person. So it's great to learn from you. Man. For those people who don't know you, where can they find you? PC, where can they connect?
LinkedIn, Paticus, twitter.com/Paticus. It's a childhood nickname. And if you ever need anything, just patrick@ProfitWell.com. I'm like more than happy to help.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Have a good one. Congrats.
Thanks, Pommy. See you guys.
I am so happy for Patrick and the team over there.
I mean, it's a wild story. It's pretty incredible. And I think when you had told me that he sold his company, I wasn't sure sort of like what that was going to look like. And it's cool that it really does feel like a merger. Is that fair to say?
Well, I mean, also he just obviously he's in it. He has to. He's extremely competitive. When we were talking about those stories of like, quote, like back in the day, all these like founders hanging out, and I was saying like, you know, Patrick, it's really true. Like we all went to dinner and we were having drinks and people were in a hot tub and we're like, you know, real downtime. And we're like, where's Patrick? And he's upstairs doing like an AMA, and then he's like doing work deep into the night. He's like, I can't stop myself. Like he just can't. He's one of those people that cannot turn it off. And I'm glad he's ended up in a place where they want him to do that, and he seems excited to do that, and he's wearing the gear, and he's like, yeah, the old brand's gone, it's dead.
He's all in. Well, he said he's like, I'm an all-in kind of guy.
Yes, which he is.
Yeah and I appreciated how honest he was about the whole decision-making process. Like that was pretty fascinating, the sort of 10-hour, almost like you're in a war room. You know, like, do we do the thing?
I mean, I'm sure people will take away from this interview. I think it's a good thing to take away that, like, even in this case, it's like a huge decision. That is one of the things you can do is say like, all right, let's take a different group of people who aren't as close to this. Let's give them the same inputs. Where do they come out on this? And you need tools like that in your toolbox, right? Like you need to think about like, what are the ways that we're going to get people on board with this massive thing, or make sure that we're even making the right decision, because up until the moment that they sign that term sheet, they could walk away. And so it is interesting that he brought us in on that process. And I appreciate what he said too, which is like, for anyone at any stage that your company's at, or the company where you work is at, or your career, or what you want to think about, like, regret minimization and trying to make decisions such that you really are happy no matter where it ends up is so huge. And also, like, you know, recognizing that like there's the input of work and there's this input of luck in the world, and you can't control everything and you can't control all the timing. But if you can go through life trying to make decisions where you are spending your time on the things that you want to spend it on. Like in his case, this is working on this problem and with a team that he like really cares about. But for whatever that is for you, like finding that is kind of like the secret to a fulfilling life, right? And for me, that's how I think about all the time. It's just like, so do I want to keep building Wistia? Well, if it's fun and I'm being challenged or working on interesting things, like I could never do anything better than this, right? Like this is it. And so I also like vacation, unlike Patrick. And so it's like, and I figured out how to fit that in. But I think for whatever it is that you're doing, just like trying to make decisions in that way is so critical, because the one limited thing we do have is time.
Dang. Gotta end on that note, man. Time is no man's or woman's or any person's friend.
But you know what makes people our friend? When they like the podcast, or they listen to it, when they subscribe, when they share with their friends. That is really helpful. We really appreciate it. And
sounded a bit like a bribe, but okay. All right.
No, we like that. That's great. It's not a bribe. No, truthfully. We want your feedback. Send it to ttlpod@wistia.com.
Do. The comments make a difference. The rankings and ratings make a difference. It really does.
It really does. And there's been more people subscribe to that email list, and so you get more exclusive content. And I don't know if we've really talked about this, but we are releasing video versions of all of the episodes now. But it's been interesting because I noticed that I will watch more podcasts. And partially what I often like to do is like watch a podcast and I'm not paying attention to it the whole time, but if they ever talk about something or show something or whatever, you can like pop over and see it. Yeah. So we're trying to create that experience for all of you.
We're trying to create the pop over experience for everyone.
We want popovers showing up on your screen left and right.
Left and right.
We want popovers to the moon, right? We just a barrage of marketing messages, right? Is that what you mean?
I was talking about the food. I was talking about the food. But yeah.
You were talking about the food?
It's time to go.
We have to go, yes. Great to see you, Sylvie. I'll see you soon.